Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
The algorithm wants attention. It's like a small child, like a 2-year-old. Look at me, look at me. It wants attention. So whatever we can do to give it attention is a good thing. I think sometimes as business owners, we forget that. So if our content isn't interesting enough and people aren't paying attention to it, the algorithm is going to start showing other content pieces. So it's not like it has a personal vendetta against you personally. It's just that it's trying to get attention, as much attention as possible from its viewers. So some things that work really well right now are video.
Hi, this is Heneka. I'm so glad you took the time to stop by today. In Jamaican parlance, Wagwan. I'm glad to say a dial. This episode is sponsored by HenekaWatkis-Porter.com as well as the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Now, on HenekaWatkis-Porter.com, you can visit us for blogs, resources, books, online podcast courses, podcasts, and more. If you are new to the Entrepreneurial You podcast, be sure to check out past episodes with guests such as John Lee Dumas, Patrice Washington, Seth Godin, Richard Branson, Amy Porterfield, and a host of other game changers.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mafood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
And now, here's today's episode.
So, greetings, everybody, and greetings to my peak performer who will be listening to this episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. Is actually episode 165. And on this episode, I have with me a very special guest, live and in living colors at Podfest Multimedia 2020. And she is Andréa Jones. She's fiercely committed to helping businesses and podcasters build profitable communities online through simple social media solutions, and she's been featured in places like HubSpot, Aweber, and WordPress. She was also named one of Social Report's top marketers to follow in 2019. So we have celebrity in the house.
Welcome,
Andréa. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here.
It's amazing. Like, we met last year at Podcast Movement.
Yes.
Right? And so how has it been going since?
Oh, it's been fantastic. And actually, Podcast Movement really launched my career with working with podcasters specifically. So prior to going to Podcast Movement, I was working with all sorts of businesses. Mm-hmm. And Podcast Movement and podcast events like this one that we're at right now, Podfest, really helped me niche down into working with podcasters. And it's just been such a fantastic experience. I love working with podcasters.
Absolutely. So now, like, before we get into our actual topics, we're going to talk about being social media savvy and being true to this show. I normally ask my guests something about Jamaica. And this time around, I want to ask you, what has been the craziest thing you've heard about Jamaica or Jamaicans?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. Smoke a lot of weed?
Oh my gosh. So I guess sometimes the image is that everybody's on the street corner, like kind of rolling something up in their hand, middle going around and stuff. But yeah, if you come to Jamaica, have you ever been, by the way?
No, I've never been.
So if you come to Jamaica, you're going to be disappointed because you're not going to be seeing everybody doing that kind of a thing on the street corner, right? But anyway, not to say it doesn't happen a lot, which it does. But let's get to talking about being social media savvy, and particularly now because you've narrowed down your focus, as you've said, to working with podcasters, right? So, and of course, my show is geared towards entrepreneurs, but we also have, and I mean, it's not to say that podcasters are not entrepreneurs, because they are. We are, and in Jamaica, we're having a lot more podcasters coming up because I've been doing a lot of evangelism on the subject, and getting people excited. So, what it is about podcasters that intrigue you so much to want to work with them?
Yeah. So the funny thing is I already was working with podcasters, but they just happened to be business owners who had a podcast. And I think the amazing thing about podcasts is it's very intimate medium. So I've worked with people who have Facebook Live shows. I've worked with people who have YouTube shows. And the difference with podcasts is you can take them with you. Whether you're going to the store, whether you're going to wherever you're going, you can take that content with you. So as a creator, you're going along with your audience as they go about their daily life. They don't have to stop what they're doing to consume your content. So it's such a powerful medium because you're literally in their heads as they're going about their day.
Right. And I mean, we're living in a world right now where it is like everybody's so busy, right? And everybody's moving along, and attention spans are very short and all of those things. So when it comes on to social media, I know like it's been around for a number of years now, but I'm sure over time it's not what it used to be, right? It has changed. The way we interact and interface with social media has changed. How has it changed in your estimation?
Yeah, so marketers are ruining social media. We saw the power of being able to connect, and we use it a lot to advertise. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think we need to focus in on why people use social media to begin with. And oftentimes, it's because they want to connect with someone else. They want to have a moment with someone else, or they want to be informed about something, or they want to just be entertained. I don't know about you, but I like looking at cute puppies and kittens on social media. And so when we're thinking about putting our content as business owners on social media, or as podcasters putting our podcast on social media, we have to keep in mind why people go on social. And I think that's one of the changes and why things are changing on social media is we're going back to that idea of community and that idea of we're here because we choose to be, and we're not really signing up for like a billboard ad or a television commercial.
All right, so let's talk about that. I mean, that's a lot to unpack because sometimes many of us abuse social media and we forget that it's not just media but social. So we've left out the social part of it. And you just said you like to look at cute puppies and cats and stuff like that. Frankly, I don't. I'll just gloss over it because I'm just so busy and focused. And I know that's abuse of, actual what you're supposed to be doing. So how can we get back the social aspect as podcasters, as business owners into social media?
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do is I actually give myself time limits on social media. So, for example, when I'm going to create social media content, I'll block off an hour of time and work on all of next week's content in that hour. So that when I'm logging in, I'm just focusing on being social. I'm not focusing on what do I have to say? I'm focusing on how can I show up and participate in the platform. So I think that's one thing that's very helpful is if you have to think about every day, okay, what am I going to post today? What should I say today? Then you're kind of missing a little bit of the point with social media, which is networking and community and connection. So plan out your content ahead of time. And then another thing that I do is I give myself time limits for spending as actively growing my social media audience. So about 10 to 20 minutes a day. So as a business owner, we have a lot of things to do in a day. So typically this is actually on my lunch break. I'm scrolling through Instagram and I'm looking for people who I don't know to connect with them.
Oh, so essential to the argument that you've just made, Andrea, is that we need to plan our content ahead of time. So, I know that's something I used to do a lot. Use a lot of social media management tools. and plan out the content so that in the week I can focus more on being social and connecting with people, because that's essentially that is what social media is about. So let's talk about some social media management tool and best practices that we should be considering.
Yeah, so one of my favorite tools, it's called Social Report. It's great for scheduling content. Disclaimer, they are a sponsor of my show, but it's because they're great. So it's a really great tool to plan your content, but also to see how effective it is. So one of the great things about Social Report is that you can look at a post and see how many people reached, how many people actually looked at it, clicked it, liked it, commented, and you can actually put it into different buckets. So if you notice that you're posting, tips and tricks every Tuesday, you can kind of measure just that category of content and see how it performs compared to the other content pieces. So it can be very helpful not only to plan your content, but also to see how effective it is, because that's really what we're here for. We want our content to be impactful and to make a difference in our business.
All right, so now that there's a tool that you're working with that you can analyze, what do you do with that analytics? Now that you've seen it, what's the next best thing to do?
Yeah, so I have a training on this that anyone, if you're listening to this, send me a direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram and I'll send it to you, because there's different goals that business owners can have, and you really want to make sure your metrics, the things that you're looking for, are aligned with your goals. So for instance, if you're a podcaster and you're looking to get more podcast listens, if you're looking at your Instagram and you go, man, this post didn't get a lot of comments, that's because that's not your goal. Your goal is to get listened. So if someone saw your post, they're going to leave the app and go listen to your podcast. So you want to look at different metrics along the way. If your goal is to build community, now you're looking at comments. Now you're looking at direct messages. So you want to take a look first at what your main goal is and then start measuring the success of your social media posts based on that goal. Because sometimes I think we get confused by comments, right, or likes because they're so public, but sometimes that doesn't even matter towards our goal. The last thing I'll mention about that is your own industry. So some of my clients are in industries where likes and comments will never be a part of it. I have clients who are in debt help services or clients who are criminal defense lawyers. People aren't going to comment on those posts because that's not a public thing that people usually share. So we're looking at different metrics. We're looking at, okay, how many people visited the website from Facebook this week? Or how many people did this post even reach this week? At least if someone saw it, then we know that they had an impact from it, even if they didn't like or comment, because they're probably not going to say, yes, I need to declare bankruptcy. Like, they're probably not going to write that on Facebook. So we're looking at different metrics along the way.
It's interesting that you said that again, because yesterday I caught the tail end of your panel. Yeah. And, right here at PodFest, we talk, on that social media marketing panel. And when you mention that we're looking at the likes and the comments or the lack thereof, and we're thinking that it's not converting, we're not having an impact, and our feelings get hurt, yeah? Right. But then we're perhaps looking at the wrong thing, because I want to reiterate that that's not really your goal. Your goal is to, as a podcaster, to have more persons listening to your podcast, having an impact, and so on. So I'm glad you've actually mentioned that again. Now, sometimes I don't think podcasters, and especially at the beginning phase, know exactly the kind of goal that they should be setting as it relates to social media, right? So what are some of the guidelines that you can give to help them?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the business. But if you have a business, the first goal is to make money. And I think sometimes we get caught up in things like, I want to have, 10,000 followers on Instagram. But if those followers aren't making you money, then that's not going to make a difference to your business. So first and foremost is a monetary metric. And with several metrics along the way that can help with that. So for some people, like for instance, I work with a career coach who's trying to book calls. so that she can book clients. So for us, we're looking at, okay, how many people are DMing us about these free consultations, or how many people actually visited the free consultation page on the website. So that's still all monetary, and everything from social media leads to that. If as you start building up your income, you also want to see people talking about your services and products, especially if you're a product-based business. If you don't see people tagging you or talking about your product, then you need to look at the delivery of that product. Are people actually happy with it? If they just feel neutral about it, then you won't see anything online, and you need to try to figure out ways to surprise and delight, because that will actually be a engine for you to build up more business in the long run. We can talk about how great we are all day, but if other people say it, it's so much more powerful. And then I would say a third metric to look at is community, and it's very similar to the reviews and tags and things, is that even if someone is a member of your community and they never purchase from you, they're still valuable because they're sharing what you do with other people. So I have a few people who I know personally who follow me. They don't buy any of my courses. They listen to my podcast, but they tell other people about it.
Which is great, by the way. So share your name of your podcast. Interject there right now.
Yeah, so it's called the Savvy Social Podcast. So if you're listening to this right now, you can click on over to the search bar and search Savvy Social Podcast.
All right, so let's talk about algorithm.
Yes.
Because it seemed that every single day, there is some of these companies have some mood swings and something changes. And when you used to be winning in one area, you're no longer winning, right? You're no longer winning in that area because perhaps Facebook woke up with a mood swing, or Google, or whatever it is. So let's talk about algorithm and some considerations to be made.
Yeah, so the algorithm wants attention. It's like a small child, like a 2-year-old. Look at me. It wants attention. So whatever we can do to give it attention is a good thing. I think sometimes as business owners, we forget that. So if our content isn't interesting enough and people aren't paying attention to it, the algorithm is going to start showing other content pieces. So it's not like it has a personal vendetta against you personally. It's just that it's trying to get attention, as much attention as possible from its viewers. So some things that work really well right now are video. So if you, just naturally, we look at video longer. Some other things that work are even just like longer posts. Anything that you can get attention from your users. Attention is defined as different things. It can be just pausing on a post. So if someone just pauses on your post longer than another post, that's great. But it also can be comments as well. So that's where having a good community can be very supportive. So like if you have a few posts that are encouraging comments, you're asking a question, you're inviting discussion, that can be very helpful for that moment then when you now have something to promote because you've been feeding the algorithm what it wants, which is attention.
All right, so let's talk about those longer posts for a moment. So we know, and I have a very short attention span, and also because we're also busy and we just want to touch and go, and particularly if you're not scheduling your posts, right? So you think that you just do a short post and stuff, but I also recognize that when I do spend the time to do longer posts, the interaction is different. Why is that though? Because our attention spans are short.
Yeah, so I think too, it's the nature of social media. A lot of people are doing what you said. They're just posting something quick. And we all are busy, so we go, oh yeah, and double tap, like it, keep scrolling. But when it's longer, we naturally want to read it if we are interested in the person, right? So especially if it's a personal post, I find those are almost celebrated differently on social media. So it's a bit of a catch-22 because we want to create content, but we don't have time all the time to write super long posts. So my suggestion is to do more quality posts than try to have a quantity of posts. So even if you write one post that week and it's a really good post, I think it'll be more valuable for your business rather than trying to post 5 days in a row.
All right, so again, and my observation too is when I post, for example, Instagram, and I'm posting like a personal picture and I have a long caption, I find that, that people engages with it more. So we're not necessarily the question is not necessarily about the length of the caption right now, but more so the type of post. So what are some of the posts, the types of posts that people are really engaging with?
Yeah, so anything that's celebratory is going to do very well on any social media platform. That's why when you log into Facebook, it's like if someone has a baby or they're getting married, that's right at the top because it's celebrating something. So as a business owner, if you're looking at how can I leverage this platform more, figure out ways you can celebrate with your audience. So as we're recording this, it's International Women's Day, and that's a great way to celebrate with your audience for something that's topical. You can also do business anniversaries. You can do the launch of new podcasts. You can do the launch of a new product. You can talk about your team and celebrate them. So if you can figure out a way to celebrate on social media, that's really a great way to encourage engagement.
All right, so question is, so when you do those posts, is it that it's the algorithm that picks up that it's a celebratory post and shares it with your audience, or your audience recognize that it is, and so it affects the algorithm? Yeah. Is it chicken or an egg? Which one is it?
It is a little bit of chicken and egg. There's a lot of theories about this. Mm-hmm. My theory is that it's human nature to like a post that's celebratory. Mm-hmm. So I think it's us pushing that post to the top. The caveat to that is I do think that certain platforms like Facebook and Instagram are owned by the same thing. I do think they have certain words that they look for. Even things like if someone starts commenting congrats, I think that triggers the algorithm. They're like, oh, this is something to celebrate. And I think they start showing that post a lot more. But it is a bit of a chicken or the egg situation. So I don't know if anybody really knows.
Yeah, right? It's just like, even as it relates to something totally different, but maybe related somewhat, is how Apple Podcasts, how your podcast gets rated, right, and top the chart. Because I've seen, like, even in my own example, like, I don't have, ton loads of downloads and stuff. But in certain categories, a lot of the times I'm topping the chart in my country, right? So, and nobody seemed to know exactly what's going on there. So if you have an idea, perhaps you can shed light, because I don't.
Yeah, I don't know too much about podcast rankings. Mm-hmm. So my podcast, for instance, is in the top 100 in the marketing category in the U.S., and I have no idea why that is. I just assume it's the consistency of the show and the amount of people that go back and listen to past episodes as well. Mm-hmm. I think that has a huge impact on the show. And so if you have content that's evergreen, that people can go back and consume at any time, I think personally that helps. But I'm just guessing at this point.
And it's interesting because I think to the point of what we've said earlier, because even in my podcast, on my particular show, I recognize that I don't have a lot of engagement on my posts regarding the podcast. And like my feelings get hurt sometimes, my poor feelings. But I'm topping the charts in my country, in my category. The entrepreneurial you, that is, because you'll be listening. So it's kind of hard to figure out some of these things. So anyway, that is why we have social media experts like yourself here. Now, as we're about to wrap up, Andréa, share with us your final thoughts and, tips that we would have neglected to talk about earlier.
So I think with social media, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. There are a lot of people telling you should be everywhere doing all of the things, and it's impossible. We're only humans, one person typically running our business. So one of the things that I recommend is just pick one thing. And go with your gut. It doesn't have to have a huge strategy, but just pick one thing. And if you go in and lean in on that one thing, then you can figure out if it's going to work for you or not. And the power with that is being consistent. So it's not logging onto Instagram, posting twice and going, this doesn't work, right? It's fully committing to that one platform. And that's oftentimes where a lot of the power comes from social media is committing and consistency.
All right, and that's why you are the social media expert, Andréa. And I don't know, it's last minute because this is like literally an impromptu conversation that we decided to have. So would you have any, giveaway that you want to, our audience to tap into?
Yes. So if you want to learn more about my social media strategy, I have a framework that's free that you can access. It's a course. You can find it by going to onlinedrea.com/free. So onlinedrea.com/free, and you can sign up for the free course. And it teaches you how to get started with social media, what you should post, when you should post it, how do you find people to connect with, and all of those good little tidbits.
And besides that freebie, where can persons find you?
I'm online at onlinedrea.com, but I like to hang out on Instagram. That's been my favorite platform. So send me a direct message on Instagram, and I will send you a voice message back.
Awesome. I have that too on my website, the voice message thing. No, I have the WhatsApp, so persons can WhatsApp me directly, which is pretty cool. So I have been talking with Andréa Jones, and she is social media marketing expert. And we've been having a fantastic time. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to chat with me and to bring your wisdom to my community. Totally appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Awesome. And thank you, my people performer, for tuning in to this episode with Andréa Jones. Each time I'm about to say her name, let me just say that each time I'm about to say her name, I pause because I'm used to Andréa, right? But she's not Andréa, she's Andréa. Let's get it right. Don't get it twisted, right? So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I really look forward to connecting with you next time. But until then, I am encouraging you to check out my book, my latest publication, Podcast Power, the Quick Start Guide to launching and leveling up your brand. It's on Amazon, of course, it's also on my website. Quick link for you to access it is bit.ly/purchase podcast power. Remember, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. What good?